You fly in, or you see pictures of Rio, you see Rio surrounded by the forests and the hills, and you see this city surrounded by nature. The external view of it is this powerful relationship to its environment. And then when you come to Rio and walk the streets, you realize it's not just around the city, it's in the city too. It's in the walls, it's in the street. And I feel that more than any city that I've been to, the presence of nature. So it was that kind of challenge for me as an artist who works with nature, is to find nature in the building and to make that connection between the building and its origin. And that's a very creative sort of dynamic for me to work with. I wanted a brick building, and this one is fantastic because the brick is not new, but it's kind of almost, it's crumbling. The brick walls of this particular area, the warehouses, the decaying walls that were revealing their interior. The idea of working with those walls. Every building is somehow in the decay, has also revealed some of its geology, where windows were blocked, where once there was a door. And first I started to look at the windows and old doors and the idea of making works that were in those areas and making a raw clay work that would crack, so it would be this connection between the building and its origin as a clay. The clay is from a place where bricks are made. This is just about to become a brick, this clay, and we take it. So you walk through the buildings into the brick, into the origin of the brick. I didn't know how to make the dome. I know what I wanted to be inside the dome, but I didn't know how to make, I wasn't sure how to make the dome. And Marcelo came to see me in Scotland, and he showed me a video of the Indian dwellings. And I had in my studio the exact same in a model that I was doing for another commission. I've made works like this before, not with clay, but it was a really nice moment where I realized this sculpture I've already done can combine with this one I want to make for the bones inside. The clay eventually was something that I particularly was interested in because of the brick building, but also the clay that Rio is on and in the hills, and this relationship with the clay. So it's a material that is very important to the city. But I wanted to go a little deeper, I wanted to get underneath the surface of things, and felt that to push it would be to actually enter the brick or enter the building somehow into a space that was raw and a very intense space. So you were actually engulfed in both the building but also the clay. Inside the building is this clay. And I think that's what you try to do in the work, is to try to remember the origin, to go beneath the skin of the surface appearance of the place, of the building. I think this work will possibly do that particularly well, going inside the brick. But this is a whole technique. I understand the clay really well. I've worked with clay a lot. I mix the clay with human hair because that's a great way to hold the clay together. It's not so visible, but it's in there, and you can see it if you look very carefully. And I also like that people are bound up in the work, they're in the walls. And those are also the techniques that I've developed, but I've never worked against the wood before, or I've never made a dome. I've made flat ceilings, but the hay and the clay and the wood was unusual. This particular piece is underwritten by a kind of a learning process. This has a deep sense of lack of control running through this one because the materials were so robust. So the beautiful thing, I hope, which will now occur, is that the whole structure, underlying structure, will start to speak and create cracking and things that will talk about how it was built. It'll be all cracks. It'll be like this, I don't know, like looking in the universe or something. It'll be in a state of collapse, a suspended collapse. It'll be like somebody falling but never reaching the ground. Cracks essentially are about the abdication of control, because you can't predict the crack. That's why I make them. They're like throws, you know, you throw something into the air and there's an unpredictability about that, but you know that if you throw something in a certain way, in a certain light, in a certain atmosphere, in a certain place, at a certain time, it will be a great throw. So whilst you can't control it, there are some things you can work with. You make the right circumstances, and this is what I've done here, I hope. It has to be in the nature of art to push things. You have to, you know. I hope I am an artist that doesn't rest on something that I know, and I will always do something that has an element of the unknown about it. And I think the older you get, I'm 56 now, and we've got 20 odd years left making sculpture, hopefully a bit more, whatever. You know, I'm not going to spend that making things I know. I want to be doing these. This is far more interesting, even though it is a little tense. Discomfort is a good state for an artist to be in. You can explain it like I have, and the rationale and the conceptual elements of the piece, but I think it's really important that ultimately it's something that can only be explained to a point after which it has to explain itself, and that enters the territory of the inexplicable, and it has to be experienced. And a work like this, it really will have to be experienced, you know. But ultimately, when the work's finished, and you come off that street, and all that street life, and all that energy, and the light, and the people, and then you walk into this very intense, quiet space inside the brick. I think that will then move into an area of the inexplicable.